I learned there are 4 qualities to be irresistible to your ex, and today I'm going to show you what those 4 qualities are. Now in 2020, when the pandemic hit, I decided to do something that I hadn't done in a long time. I decided I was going to write a book. And so I wrote this book. This is not a sales pitch, I promise. I don't even care if you buy it or not. But it relates to this video. So in this book, I talk about 12 qualities that women specifically, but men can use it too, need to exhibit to become ungettable, to have their pick of the litter, so to speak. But one of the things I learned when I was researching and writing this book was the fact that not all qualities were created equal. Some were better than others, and in specific, there are 4 that I think are the most important to master. And that's what we're going to be talking about in this video today. And we're going to start first with quality number 1, the confidence quality. Now, the confidence quality in and of itself can be arguably the most important quality there is. I think it goes without saying that usually when people go through breakups, they're having a very difficult time with their confidence. In fact, recent research from many different reputable studies have said 40% of individuals will experience a clinical depression following a romantic relationship disillusion. Honestly, I thought it'd be higher. So usually when clients come into my orbit, my first job is reinstalling confidence within them. But how do you make someone more confident? It's not exactly something you can just say, hey, be more confident, and then the client will simply roll out of bed and what do you know, they're more confident. It's a lot more nuanced and difficult to achieve confidence, especially when you're in a state of mind where you don't feel confident about anything you're doing whatsoever. So, like all things, I've created a framework for people to kind of give my thoughts on how to become more confident after a breakup. And really, it's best to think of confidence in terms of layers, specifically layers of a cake. You have the surface layer, the lifestyle layer, and then the internal layer. But what goes into each of these layers? Well, we start first with the surface level layer. Confidence, thingamajig. Okay, so the surface layer is kind of the most superficial layer out of the 3. It's going to include things like how you look, how you walk, how you talk, what you're posting on social media. So essentially anything external can go into the surface layer. And really it's all about perception. How other people perceive you kind of informs how well you're doing with the surface layer. But in my opinion, it's the weakest and most superficial of the 3 layers. Next up we have the lifestyle layer. So this is the middle layer of the cake, so to speak. So with the surface level layer before, we're talking all about how you look living your life. With this level, we're talking about how you actually live your life. So it's going to include things like who are your friends? Who are your family members? What are your hobbies? What is your job? If you've ever heard me talk about the Holy Trinity or the Magnum Opus concept, that stuff is falling squarely into this level. But it's actually not the most important area of building confidence. That would be the internal layer. This is the foundational layer upon which everything else is built. And it's a little bit tricky to quantify because there's not really something you can quantify it with other than chasing a certain type of feeling. The best way I can describe it is that you've grown so confident with yourself that you know nothing is going to keep you down for very long. So from the perspective of a breakup, your logic within the internal layer is going to look something like this. You're going to say, well, you know what? This breakup hurts now, but I'm going to be okay. How can I make this negative into a positive? Now remember, a good life is not one immune to sadness, but rather one where suffering contributes to our development. So you're taking the suffering you're feeling with the breakup and you're using it into motivational fuel to fuel everything and getting to this place emotionally where you're okay not getting your ex back. You're okay moving on from your ex. You're okay with the breakup. And then from there, you start working on lifestyle stuff, surface level stuff, and all together it synergizes and breeds confidence. But that's only one of the 4 qualities. The second quality has to do with social proof. Now, it goes without saying that popularity in and of itself is overrated, but it does provide some really unique, distinct advantages for those who have it. And that's really due to the power of social proof. And perhaps this is most prevalent in one of Mr. Beast's videos. So what's really cool about this is he did this video where basically he created a bunch of circles, and anything you can fit inside the circle, he'll buy for you. But each circle is a different size and whatever. So he ends up going to this college campus. And he decides to put a random circle in the middle of, I guess, the college campus. It looked like a college campus. And essentially, he put a little board there saying this. So essentially, you stand inside of this circle for a certain period of time that's not specified, and you can win $100. Free money, right? Pretty great. But what was really interesting is he runs to his car, and then he simply waits to see when people will go. A few minutes go by, people walk by the circle, and they're saying, they seem sort of skeptical, they think it's potentially a scam, they walk by, but all it takes is one person, and then all the dominoes fall. And by the end, after this one person went in, you start to see this really interesting phenomenon occurring. Hey, what's that over there? Makes you kind of check it out. You go over there, and then next thing you know, by the end of this experiment, this is how many people are in the circle. This is social proof at work. So generally speaking, the more attention something gets, the more attractive that thing becomes, both positive or negative. It's the rubbernecking effect. If you've ever been in a car and you've been driving down the road and you see a car accident, what do? You stop, you slow down, you look. It's more interesting. So one of the qualities that can make you more attractive to an ex, make you more attractive to anyone in general, is social proof. Having attention or getting attention from other people on what you're doing. Now, generally, we're hoping it's positive attention, but even negative attention can work out in some ways, but we're mostly speaking positive here. But how do you get social proof working for you? Well, that's where the next quality comes into play. So the next quality is all about finding something that you care more about than your ex. Now, most of the time, when people enter into our ecosystem, the biggest mistake they make is they're too available for their ex. Their entire life is based around this ex, getting this ex back. That's all they want, and so that's all they think about. All that they are is their ex. Weird, right? And it's really the whole pedestal effect. By placing their ex on a pedestal, they can never get their ex back because their ex thinks, I'm better than them. And since they have their ex on that pedestal and they think about nothing else other than their ex, they don't give themselves the opportunity to do anything extraordinary with their lives. They just become a shell of themselves, of the person potentially that their ex originally fell in love with. And so one of the smartest things you can do for yourself is trying to find something that you care about more than your ex. And all that matters here is that you are as passionate as possible about this thing. So passionate, in fact, that you can spend your entire life doing this one thing and be happy. And usually when you are passionate about something and when you go full throttle into that one thing, you start to gain attention. And that attention breeds social proof. And that social proof breeds confidence. And there's a certain through line for all of these qualities that work together to make you more irresistible to other people. But let's have an honest discussion here about the final quality. And the final quality is your ex needing to think you are out of their league. And this is my favorite one to talk about. All right, so a few years ago, I watched this really cool documentary on the science of attraction. And researchers did this really cool study, and I'm ashamed to say it's the only thing out of the entire documentary that I actually remember. But the study was really cool. So they took 30 men and women, 15 men, 15 women, and they were each given a number between 1 and 10. They had people, I guess, outside of the study rate them based on their attractiveness level. So 1 being the least attractive and 10 being the most attractive. And what researchers were trying to do was to see if they make an equal playing field where all things are equal, how would people partner up? Would people pair up naturally based on their attractiveness level? Would an 8 pair up with an 8? Would a 10 pair up with a 10? Would a 1 pair up with a 2? They were trying to see. But here's the coolest part. None of the participants could literally know what their number was. So let's say I showed up to the study. I would be given a number like this, a 1. It would be taped on my head. And I would not be allowed to see it, but I could see everyone else's number. So as this is taped to my head, a few other interesting things happen. I was given a full body suit where essentially all you could see was my number and my face. Everything else was kind of blocked out. So you couldn't see what the person's body looks like. You couldn't see what their hairstyle was like. All you could see was their face. And then each contestant, or I guess participant, was given a time limit. And the men specifically would have to go up to a woman and extend their hand. And if the woman took the hand, then that person would be partnered up. And they'd be out of the study. So the time limit began, people went up, and no one would pick one. But eventually, someone picked one. The study was over. And what researchers found was that when the playing field is equal, based on attractiveness level, people tended to partner up with one another, usually 1 or 2 numbers off. So the 3 would partner up with the 4, the 5 would partner up with the 6, the 8 would partner up with the 7. That's how it worked. But does dating really work that way? Is being out of someone's league purely a looks-based thing? Well, no, because another interesting study was done. The other interesting study was they threw a wrench in the whole level playing field. So instead of just rating people with 1s and 2s and 8s and 6s and whatever, they also provided some detail on how much money the numbers made. So let's say Mr. 1 makes $1 million a year. When they would go to random strangers on the street and kind of showed a picture of the person, as well as how much money they made. When they would go to someone on the street randomly, show a random picture of the person, they would have people rate them 1. But then they would go to that same person and reveal how much money this 1 made. And all of a sudden, what you started to find is 1s became 3s or 4s. 4s became 5 and 6s. So there's more to this component of feeling out of your league than just looks. Look, I think anyone's doing you a disservice if they sit there and lie to you and say that looks never enter the equation when it comes to attraction. That's simply not true. It does, but it's not the only thing that matters. In fact, I think there are 2 criteria that need to be met for someone to feel like they are dating someone out of their league. Number 1 is that person needs to feel like the person they're dating is better than them, both looks-wise and personality-wise. And that's the cool part about this. Looks don't matter as much as personality in the end. At first, at the beginning, when we're dating someone, we are superficial creatures. We tend to judge people based on looks. But in relationships, it's the personality that keeps us together. It's the personality that stretches it out, that gives us longevity. So don't sit there and tell me that personality is not more important than looks. I do think it is. The second criteria that I think needs to be met is the fact that that person needs to feel you are more accomplished than they are. This is where that passion project comes back into play. Generally speaking, people who are very passionate tend to accomplish great things. And with those great things, they give themselves a certain level of confidence. And with that confidence, they can appear to be more accomplished. And that is what creates a perfect cocktail of attraction. When you have someone who not only thinks that you are better than them looks and personality-wise, but also more accomplished than you, they feel like they're punching above their weight class. Instead of you placing them on the pedestal, they place you on the pedestal.